For more than a century, the Chicago Bears have been one of the NFL's most iconic franchises. But now, after years of uncertainty, the team appears closer than ever to leaving Chicago behind. And if it happens, it could change the NFL landscape forever. Let me break down what's happening. The Bears took a significant step toward leaving Chicago after the team's board of directors voted to advance their stadium development plans in Hammond, Indiana. That vote landed on Thursday, June 4th, 2026. By Friday morning, the statement was out and the internet was on fire. This was the first time in the Bears' history that the team's board of directors had voted on a stadium site. And one source told ESPN's Adam Schefter, "There is more work to do, but barring anything very strange, it's a done deal." In over 100 years of existence, the Bears board had never once cast a formal vote on where to plant their flag. Not once. And when they finally did, they voted to leave the state entirely. The team has called Illinois home for 106 years and currently resides in Soldier Field, the NFL's oldest currently operating stadium. That building, that lakefront monument with its columns and its history, is now on its way to becoming a footnote. The reaction from fans was immediate, and it was not gentle. One season ticket holder wrote on Facebook, "As a PSL season ticket holder, this is a disgrace to Papa Bear Hallis. Shame on you, George and Kevin. Shame on you for not extending your crocodile arms into your own billions." Bears fan Dan McQuaid spoke to NBC Chicago right after the announcement and said point blank, "It's disappointing. The team belongs in Illinois." Zahari Jones, another Chicago fan, was even more direct. "I feel like it's a diss to the city, and yeah man, the city is really going to miss them." And then there were people like Gwen Williams, 72, a lifelong North Sider. "How's that going to sound? Indiana Bears, it doesn't sound right." Dolores Davis, 67, another lifelong North Sider, didn't mince words either. No hell to the no, I'm done. Chicago needs to keep Chicago in Chicago. That's what makes Chicago. On the other side of the state line, Secondino Diojacki put on his Chicago Bears jersey and headed down to the potential site at Wolf Lake to take photos. "I watched the Bears win the Super Bowl in 1985, he said. "I think it's a great opportunity for the region." Hammond resident and lifelong Bears fan Bryce Ozelli told NBC Chicago, "Me and my friends are just over the moon. Hammond's a beautiful area. There are so many Bears fans in Northwest Indiana that will fill that stadium just like Soldier Field." Because this wasn't just a stadium decision. This was a 100-year relationship getting a formal notice of termination. The Bears traced their roots back to 1919, when the amateur Decatur Staleys were founded. A year later, the team turned professional, moving to Chicago in 1921 and taking on the Bears moniker in 1922. They're one of the clubs that essentially built the NFL into what it is. First at Wrigley Field, then, since 1971, at Soldier Field on the lakefront. Soldier Field, located along Lake Michigan in the city's near South Side neighborhood, has been their full-time home since 1971 and is the oldest active NFL stadium. It's beautiful in the way old things are beautiful, with history layered on history, with the ghost of George Hallis in the press box. But it's also, by every modern NFL standard, a relic. Soldier Field was first opened in 1924 and has not undergone significant renovations since 2003. Think about what the NFL landscape looked like in 2003. Now think about what it looks like today. Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, AT&T Stadium in Dallas. These are not just stadiums, they are event machines. They host Super Bowls, college football championships, massive concerts, international soccer. They generate hundreds of millions of dollars in non-NFL revenue every single year. Soldier Field, meanwhile, is locked into the past, physically and contractually. The Bears' lease at Soldier Field runs through 2033, but the team can buy its way out of the lease. The Bears have been trapped, paying rent on a house they don't want to live in, while watching every other major franchise around them build palaces. The Bears have never owned their stadium, whether playing at Wrigley Field from 1921 to 1970 or Soldier Field since. Every dollar that flows through Soldier Field on a non-Bears event, the Bears don't see it. That money belongs to the Chicago Park District. In September 2021, the Bears first put a purchase agreement on the 326-acre plot of land in Arlington Heights. In September 2022, the team unveiled a nearly $5 billion plan for Arlington Heights that called for an enclosed stadium that could host Super Bowls and Final Fours. The total project would cost $10.9 billion, with the Bears paying more than $2 billion. The stadium alone would cost $6.6 billion. But there was a catch. there's always a catch. And the catch was what ultimately sent everything spiraling. In 2023, the Bears paid $197 million to buy the former Arlington International Racetrack site. But the team said it's not financially feasible without legislation allowing them to negotiate a discounted property tax rate in Arlington Heights. State lawmakers showed zero willingness to throw any blocks on their path out of Soldier Field. That was the wall, property taxes, without the state stepping in, what they called the mega projects bill. The whole Arlington Heights plan sat in limbo. Billions of dollars of construction plans, architects hired, renderings released, all of it frozen in place because Springfield couldn't get its act together. The Bears didn't just wait for Arlington Heights to get solved. They pivoted hard. The Bears shifted their focus toward building a new stadium next to Soldier Field after Kevin Warren was hired as team president in January 2023. The plan to transform Chicago's museum campus got an enthusiastic endorsement from Mayor Brandon Johnson and a tepid reception from Governor J.B. Pritzker and state legislators when it was announced in April 2024. In 2024, the Bears shifted their focus to the parking area south of Soldier Field on Museum campus. The plan was to build a new domed stadium and to invest more than $2 billion in private money in a publicly owned stadium and park space. That $4.7 billion proposal was dead on arrival thanks to the $900 million in taxpayer dollars for the stadium. Not to mention the high potential for litigation with parkland advocates who successfully fended off George Lucas's Star Wars Museum from breaking ground east of Lakeshore Drive. So the lakefront plan died, and the team pivoted back again. The team switched gears again in May 2025, announcing it had made significant progress with local leaders in Arlington Heights. At this point, the Bears had publicly flopped between 3 locations in roughly 18 months. In November 2025, progress on the stadium was slightly delayed due to not receiving state funds for $826 million in nearby public infrastructure. Month after month, the mega projects bill, the legislation that would have given the Bears the property tax framework they needed, stalled in Springfield. The Bears warned that construction costs were rising by $10 million to $12 million per month. That's $120 million a year leaking out of the project just by standing still. Bears sources told the Chicago Sun-Times that the lack of progress in Springfield might force them to consider looking at stadium sites outside Cook County. And then in December 2025, the letter dropped. Bears president and CEO Kevin Warren sent a letter to fans saying the team would explore other locations for their planned new dome stadium, including Northwest Indiana. Indiana had been watching all of this very carefully, and they were ready. While Illinois was busy doing nothing, adjourning sessions, failing to call votes, trading blame between the governor's office and the House, Indiana was building a case the Bears couldn't ignore. Indiana passed Senate Bill 27 to create the Northwest Indiana Stadium Authority, which can acquire land, issue bonds, and finance a major stadium project. That's what decisive governance looks like. While Illinois argued about whether to even let Cook County municipalities form a stadium authority, Indiana went ahead and built one, statewide, fully funded, ready to go. Indiana passed its own incentive package, largely matching the offer that built Lucas Oil Stadium for the Indianapolis Colts. It offered $1 billion in taxpayer-backed financing for a stadium, allowing the Bears to build a stadium without paying property taxes for decades. That last part is critical, property taxes. The exact thing that torpedoed Arlington Heights, that derailed years of planning. Indiana just took it off the table entirely. Not a negotiation, not a promise of future legislation, a done deal signed into law, ready to be executed. In January, Indiana lawmakers introduced a bill to create the Northwest Indiana Stadium Authority. The authority would build and own the stadium, with the Bears' lease payments paying down the debt issued to pay for it. Indiana is also collecting hundreds of millions of dollars from the company operating the Indiana Toll Road in exchange for toll hikes to help pay for infrastructure around the stadium. So this is the offer Indiana put on the table. $1 billion in public incentives, no property taxes, a stadium authority that handles construction debt, infrastructure funding from toll road revenue, and a site near Wolf Lake, just about 25 miles from Soldier Field. Hammond sits roughly 25 miles from the Bears' current home. Indiana also reached a deal in February, where the Bears would pay $2 billion to help build a stadium in Hammond, with the option to buy it outright later. And the NFL was watching too. The NFL commissioner toured the Hammond site earlier this year. That's not a commissioner doing a casual drive-by. That's Roger Goodell personally assessing whether this move is viable. whether Hammond, Indiana can host NFL football at the highest level. His presence there was a signal. Meanwhile, back in Illinois, the final session was approaching. The Illinois Senate passed a bill early Monday morning that would have cleared the way for Arlington Heights and Chicago to create local stadium authorities, creating a pathway for the Bears to avoid paying property taxes on a new stadium in Illinois. But the House adjourned without taking up the measure on the last day of the state's spring legislative session. That was it. The House just left. No vote, no debate. They adjourned. And in doing so, they handed Indiana the keys. Indiana's Governor Mike Braun didn't miss a beat. His office proclaimed, "Hoosiers, help me welcome the Chicago Bears to our great state." Indiana's Speaker of the House, Todd Huston, who led the legislative effort to land the Bears, said it plainly, "We're stable. We get things done. We support big things in Indiana, and this is certainly one of them." And the Chicago Sun-Times put it in terms that needed no spin. The General Assembly's breathtaking decision to fumble the ball and adjourn without doing anything for the Bears left Hammond, Indiana in the driver's seat. The legislature essentially called the Bears' bluff, daring them to make the jump across the border. On Friday, the team said it was preparing to do exactly that. The vote happened, the statement was released, and now the NFL is staring down a situation it hasn't seen in a long time. One of its most historic franchises crossing a state line with its name still attached to a city it no longer calls home. The Bears are not expected to become the Indiana Bears or the Hammond Bears, no matter how many jokes keep popping up on social media. Despite the team pursuing a stadium across state lines, ownership has an agreement with Indiana officials to keep the Chicago Bears name, uniforms, colors, and historical branding intact. But that's cold comfort for the people who grew up with this team. Several Instagram users left comments on the team's announcement post, asking if they plan to change their name from the Chicago Bears, or the lyrics to the team's historic touchdown song that states "You're the pride and joy of Illinois," to account for the out-of-state move. That song. Think about that. "You're the pride and joy of Illinois," a line that's been sung at Soldier Field for generations, that parents have taught their kids, that gets bellowed after touchdowns in the freezing Chicago winter wind. That lyric is now geographically inaccurate, and nobody in the Bears front office has addressed it. Bears officials, including Chairman George McCaskey and Kevin Warren, have received significant criticism from fans for seeking to leave the team's home city. They were also criticized for repeatedly changing positions and reportedly having a muted presence in Springfield last weekend as lawmakers sought to pass legislation to keep the team in Illinois. The Chicago Sun-Times framed the blame game this way: if the Bears pick up stakes, there's enough blame to go around to fill a season's worth of NFL playbooks. Starting with former Bears president Ted Phillips, continuing with his successor Kevin Warren, and going right down the line to the officials who couldn't or wouldn't get the ball over the legislative goal line. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker issued a statement making clear where he stood. The Bears have built a storied legacy in Illinois for over 100 years, but have spent the last 6 years, and especially the last few months, shifting their position on a stadium location. That has hindered their progress. Today appears to be another instance of that, after Illinois leaders have been working with the Bears in good faith. Governor Pritzker has always been clear that he wants the Bears to stay in Illinois and still remains open to a sensible solution that protects taxpayers. Mayor Brandon Johnson continued to push for Chicago as the best spot for a future Bears stadium, despite the team's repeated public assertions that the city is off the table. Even former Governor Rod Blagojevich, who has his own colorful relationship with Illinois governance, jumped on social media, posting that "this never would have happened if I were governor and Daley were mayor." Politics has a way of making strange cameos in moments like this. And what about Soldier Field, the building that's been the Bears' home since 1971, the NFL's oldest active stadium, a monument on the lakefront? What becomes of it? The Bears' move is another blow to Soldier Field, as its other big tenant, Major League Soccer's Chicago Fire, also announced they were leaving for a new stadium, though that one will remain in the city of Chicago. Fox 32 Chicago ran a segment asking what would happen to Soldier Field if the Bears left, and plans were being pitched to turn the stadium into a year-round concert venue. As recently as August 2025, the arena hosted 5 consecutive nights of sold-out concerts headlined by Oasis, My Chemical Romance, and System of a Down. Some Bears fans may not want to read this, but if this truly is the end of Soldier Field in the NFL, Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, will become the league's oldest. That single line might be the most quietly devastating detail in this whole story. The Bears leaving doesn't just change Chicago, it changes the historical texture of the entire league. Lambeau becomes the oldest. A stadium in Indiana, a state that already has an NFL team in Indianapolis, becomes the new home of a franchise called the Chicago Bears. A departure from the state itself, and a move to a state that already has an NFL team. The Indianapolis Colts is a development that's somehow stunning yet unsurprising. And still, even now, it's not fully final. A league source told ESPN that Indiana is in the lead, but Illinois can still get back in the race. The exact site in Hammond hasn't been chosen. The lease at Soldier Field technically runs until 2033. The Hammond mayor previously said construction could start as soon as this summer, but construction starting this summer and a 100-year homecoming being truly, permanently over are two different things. What's undeniable is that the Chicago Bears, the team of Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus, of Mike Singletary and Brian Urlacher, of a fan base that has loved them through decades of heartbreak, are on the doorstep of a move that redefines who they are. The Chicago Bears are the NFL's second oldest franchise and have made Illinois their home base for over a century. But after 105 years, the franchise's board of directors voted to advance plans for a proposed $5 billion domed stadium in Hammond, Indiana. The Bears' move will represent a historic break with Illinois and Soldier Field, the NFL's oldest stadium, which opened in 1924. The name says Chicago. The board voted for Indiana. And right now, somewhere between Wolf Lake and the lakefront, the future of one of professional football's most storied franchises hangs in the balance, on the back of a board vote, a $1 billion incentive package, and a state legislature that simply walked out the door.